I think, like I said in the interview, I think Jake is getting better. He may need to work on his stamina a little bit, but for the most part, gained a lot of respect for Jake because he's.
I think it's a very dangerous fight because we've got a trained athlete who's 18 stone plus against a much smaller guy who really he's not. He hasn't earned the right, I don't believe, to fight.
The press conference didn't feel like the usual pre-fight promotion. It had an edge, a tension simmering beneath the surface that everyone in the room could feel. The atmosphere shifted dramatically when Joseph Parker, normally calm and composed, finally snapped at Fabio Wardley. His voice hardened, his expression...
He get a cruiserweight title in 2 years. Do you think he can?
It's possible. It's possible. Listen, man, a lot of people write Jake off, but Jake can punch with that right hand. He got a nice right hand. Gained a lot of respect for Jake because he's not a YouTuber that's just boxing just to box. He actually trains and actually want to get better and actually have got better and really putting his time, focus, and energy into boxing. So you got to respect him.
Sharpened, and the words that came out weren't just trash talk. They were a chilling warning. Parker promised to smash through Wardley on fight night, and in that moment it became clear that this wasn't going to be a polite exchange of words. It was personal. Wardley, refusing to back down, fired back with his trademark swagger and confidence.
There's Tank Davis. They just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on him.
He boldly promised a knockout, delivering his lines like a man trying to convince both the crowd and himself. His words were rehearsed, defiant, but beneath the bravado, there was a flicker of unease. The audience
between these two guys, and I think sometimes when you get two guys that don't have a lot to lose but have everything to gain, you just get great fights. Both these guys, I promised them, I said the winner of this fight will be involved in a big fight internationally.
Sensed it. It was as though Wardley was daring himself to believe his own hype, masking a hint of nervousness with noise and aggression. That tense back and forth transformed the press conference into something electric, no longer a promotional event, but a preview of the battle to come. When the verbal war finally cooled, veteran analyst Duke McKenzie cut through the noise with...
It does add to it, and people will tune in to see Jake Paul get sparked. But, we just hope... I don't want him to get seriously hurt, and that's my real worry, my real fear for the man, is that he gets seriously hurt.
With calm authority, McKenzie wasn't buying into the hype surrounding Wardley. His breakdown was sharp and precise, like a surgeon with a scalpel. According to him, Wardley relied far too heavily on raw power. Banking on the idea of landing one perfect punch to turn the fight around. That, McKenzie argued, was a dangerous gamble against someone as skilled and complete as Joseph Parker. He reminded everyone of Parker's pedigree, a former world champion with a wealth of experience, technical brilliance, and a relentless engine. Against Wardley's single-shot power, Parker brought an entire arsenal of weapons. Parker has the seasoning, the intelligence, and now, under Andy Lee's guidance, he looks better than ever, McKenzie said. This is a very dangerous version of Joseph Parker. Wardley can punch, yes, but against someone this sharp, power alone isn't enough. McKenzie's words were less a prediction than a warning.
You guys need to fight guys your same size. When you fought Floyd, you are massive. He did hit you with a fucking bomb, and you fucking ate it. He's gonna fight Gervonta Davis. Who do you got? Gervonta, I think, hits way harder than Floyd, but he's too small. Your brother's gonna be able to get inside on him, put his weight on him, tie him up.
I hear your critique on fighting guys the same size as you. Is that why you guys wouldn't let me fight Conor?
Yeah, you're fucking huge. Conor weighs 145 pounds, 155 pounds.
Yeah, but Fabio Wardley was stepping into deep waters. Johnny Nelson added another layer to the discussion. While he acknowledged Parker's resurgence and superior skill set, he didn't completely dismiss Wardley's chances. He reminded the room that Parker had been hurt before. Joe Joyce stopped him, and Dillian Whyte had dropped him earlier in his career. Wardley, with his knockout power, always carried that threat. However, Nelson argued that the unpredictability favored Parker, not Wardley. Even when he entertained the idea of an upset, it came across more as a tip of the hat to Parker's versatility. Wardley might land a big shot, Nelson admitted, but the likelihood is slim. Parker is sharper, smarter, and more dangerous than ever under Andy Lee. If he stays switched on, Wardley's power won't save him. Adam Smith took the conversation further, framing the fight as a genuine crossroad in both men's careers. Parker, he said, wasn't just fighting for another win. He was fighting for relevance in a heavyweight division that was rapidly evolving. With Alexander Usyk tied up in...
Gervonta Davis actually beats him as well. He's one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world at lightweight. But it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? It's like you got a guy of 5'5" boxing a guy of 6 foot plus. Cruiserweight, yeah, it's just all a little bit odd. I thought if they're going to do an exhibition, perhaps Jake should have picked someone more.
Until 2026, Parker couldn't afford to drift. Every fight mattered, and Wardley was the perfect stay-busy opponent, but also a risky one. Smith dissected Wardley's undefeated record, pointing out that it wasn't as dominant as it seemed. He recalled Wardley's dramatic fight against Justice Hooney, where Wardley was badly beaten early on and only escaped with a last-ditch knockout. For Smith, this was the key. Wardley's unbeaten status had been propped up by moments of luck, and luck, he warned, doesn't last forever. If Parker stays disciplined, Smith said, Wardley's magic won't save him this time. Promoter Eddie Hearn brought his usual energy, hyping the stakes, but even his words carried a note of respect for Parker's recent resurgence. Hearn praised Parker's willingness to face dangerous opponents on short notice, fighters other heavyweights avoided. Parker wasn't clinging to past glory. He was forcing his way back into the elite conversation.
Jake Paul can fight, but he's a good domestic fighter. He's a good domestic fighter. He's a domestic fighter, and so you can't take that away from like.
I'm not sure about that.
Domestically, you'd put him in there with the kids at British level. I'm putting anything.
He went the distance with Tommy Fury.
Yeah.
So that's domestic.
Fight at a time. Hearn rattled off the list of names Parker had faced: Deontay Wilder, Joe Joyce, Derek Chisora, Zhilei Zhang. These weren't just fights. They were battles that had forged Parker into the dangerous contender he is today. Eddie's framing was crystal clear. Wardley wasn't the star of this story. He was the gatekeeper Parker needed to smash through. For British fans, this narrative hit differently. Parker had long been respected for his grit and work ethic, but with momentum now on his side, the respect was turning into genuine belief. If he dismantled Wardley, the heavyweight landscape could shift overnight. However, Spencer Oliver cautioned against writing Wardley off completely. He credited Fabio for his grit and character, the same traits that allowed him to survive the storm against Justice Hooney and eventually score the knockout. Many fighters would have folded under that kind of pressure, but Wardley's refusal to quit made him
I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Dangerous until the final bell. Oliver's perspective reframed the fight for Parker. It wasn't just about skill, it was about discipline, timing, and mental toughness. Could Parker, the rejuvenated former champion, stay sharp enough to neutralize Wardley's grit and hammer fist power? Or would Wardley's sheer stubbornness open a small window for a shocking upset? Wardley himself leaned heavily on the miles on the clock argument, painting Parker as a worn-out veteran softened by years of grueling wars. But the experienced voices in the room saw it differently. Parker's mileage wasn't a weakness. It was experience forged at the highest level against elite opponents. To them, Wardley's trash talk sounded less like a confident fighter and more like a man trying to convince himself. Fabio Wardley was gambling everything on power and belief. Joseph Parker, on the other hand, was bringing skill, experience, and hunger, a combination that on fight night could prove unstoppable. The press conference ended, but the tension lingered. This wasn't just another heavyweight clash. It was
That's the fight we won, and I think that's the fight the fans won, such after a great fight like that. Everybody's looking forward to the second bout, but unfortunately, things ain't lining up as planned, so we just can't sit around and wait. We gotta move forward. and continue.
A battle between a rising puncher and a reborn craftsman. A fight that could redefine careers and reshape the heavyweight division. When the first bell rings, only one man's vision of the future will survive. Fabio Wardley's bravado at the press conference felt less like unshakable confidence, and more like self-comfort. Deep down, he had to know that Joseph Parker's scars weren't signs of decline. They were proof of battles fought and survived at the highest level. Parker had been through fires that Wardley had never even approached. That gap between hype and hard reality was the true danger. Wardley was stepping into deep waters for the first time, while Parker had been swimming there for years. Analyst Jordan didn't sugarcoat it, saying bluntly what many were already thinking. Wardley had got out of jail in his last fight. In other words, he was lucky to escape with a victory. That begged a hard question. Was Wardley truly ready for someone as polished and experienced as Parker, or was this fight a leap too far too soon? Commentator Catateral offered a more balanced take. While he tipped Parker to win, he also emphasized that this was still the right fight for Wardley.